I want to confirm, yes, that the budget hearing is being, I wanted to confirm that it's online. Yes. Okay.
Wait one moment.
I've been advised. Wait 1 moment.
Hello, Ms. Boyle.
Yes, Ms. Pitts, Mr. Aponte is double checking something to make sure that the presentation is live and persons wishing to log in can see it.
Okay.
So he's going to mute, we're sharing a computer, so he's going to mute me for a moment. So if we could just have a little patience so Mr. Aponte can work his techno magic.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Lorraine.
Yes, I've been in since 6:45.
Oh,
Something
you
was
have?
wrong.
Okay.
I hung up and I dialed it back again because she
Okay.
couldn't hear me.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Boyle, you know that Ms. Dredden is here, right?
Yes, Ms. Pitts. Matter of fact, I saw her number as being logged in.
Okay. Good.
What's going on
Ms. Dredden, did you hear Ms. Boyle say that we're waiting for Mr. Aponte to?
there? No, I didn't hear it.
Yes,
So
that's why.
what's
That's
going on? I didn't hear it.
yes. We're all here. We're waiting for Mr. Aponte to connect technically so that we're all going to be able to see the slide presentation for the budget.
All right.
So we're all here. We're just kind of waiting.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam President, we're back. I want to thank everybody for their patience. Ms. Dredden has joined the meeting. I believe she was there, so I'll just do a quick roll call for Ms. Dredden.
Okay.
So Ms. Dredden, are you present?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, thank you. So we'll begin the presentation. Again, I want to thank everybody for logging in to hear and participate in the budget hearing this evening. I'm going to ask Mr. Ponte to move the slide. Okay. Mr. Ponte wants me to move the slide. Okay, so our district goals, which Ms. Pitts just read, student achievement, continue to foster a positive school environment conducive to teaching and learning. We're going to continue to market our strengths and achievements to all stakeholders to increase the capacity for a greater parent, caregiver, and community support. And tonight, we're here to present a fiscally sound budget which assists in achieving these goals. So I just, yeah. Okay. First off, I just want to discuss briefly the enrollments. If you look at the October 2018 and October 15, 2019, those are actual counts that the district has had. So I'll look at October 15, 2019. We had full-time students of about 4,776. We also had 73 students sent out to private schools and 66 other students sent out to other schools. Within that count, we had received 159 students and we had 5 in state facilities. So that would total 4,761. The October 15, 2020 count is an estimate because of course we can't look into the future, but according to the budget software, there's trends and it gives us a percentage in order to stay within. So we're estimating full-time on roll 4,762, 73 sent to private schools, 67 to other districts. We're assuming that receive would be still 159 students, and we do have a state facilities count of 6. So that would give us a total enrollment of resident students of 4,749. So we are projecting a slight decrease next year. But again, I don't have a crystal ball. Move to the next slide. For the 2019-2020, I want to just discuss some state aid that we're receiving. So for this year, in support of the operating budget, we have state aid of $44,266,082. Preschool aid was $742,516 for a total of $45,008,598. We were given our state aid figures back in late February. Our operating budget, the state is going to give us $44,736,788, which is an increase of $470,000. I'm going to start rounding now. For preschool aid, there's going to be an increase to $801,000 for a total of $45,537,802. So overall, the district has received an increase of state aid of $529,204. Now, again, this is pre-COVID-19. So the state has released a lot of money and they're trying to adjust their budget. So at this point, we are going to present and keep moving according to the state aid figures that we were given back in February. In terms of federal aid for 2019, that's a calculation. So for 1920 this year, they are estimating if we have a 90%, I believe it's a 90% participation rate, we should receive $249,169 for in semi-revenue. The calculation for next year is $251,358. Those are not guaranteed numbers. It's based on participation, and you can't necessarily make people participate. But if we achieve the 90% ratings or percentages, we would see an increase of $2,189. Local contribution to the budget for this year, our tax levy is $49.5 million for 1920. We anticipated $2.6 million from fund balance. We also approved a $5.2 million withdrawal for capital reserve to support some projects. So local contribution was $57.4 million. For next year, we're projecting an increase, a 2% increase in the tax levy. So the tax levy would be $50.5 million. Fund balance, we're going to appropriate $2.2 million in fund balance. And we're going to make a withdrawal, or we're proposing to make a withdrawal from capital reserve of $4.3 million for a total local share of $57.1 million. So on the next slide, I'm going to show total revenue sources for just the operating budget. And I wanted to make that clear. This is just the operating. So the local tax levy would be 50.5 million. State aid would be 44.7, and extraordinary aid is 200,000. The extraordinary aid is similar to semi in that I don't have an exact figure. We do modestly budget that at 200. It's not a given. Usually it comes in higher, but 200 is a comfortable number. We're going to appropriate 2.2 million from fund balance. We're estimating 2.5 million from tuition revenue. We also are anticipating $80,600 for miscellaneous revenue, such as interest on capital reserve, maintenance reserve, use of facilities, and refunds. Semi, again, that was a number that's generated by the budget software, 251,000, and our withdrawal from capital reserve of 4.3 million for a total operating budget of 104,975,852. Now we get to take a little break from all the numbers and we get to look at a chart. State aid makes up 43% of our total revenues. The tax, 43%. The tax levy is 48%. Our fund balance is approximately 2%. Tuition is approximately 2%. The withdrawal from capital reserve is approximately 4%. And then our miscellaneous revenue, the extraordinary aid at 200,000 and semis approximately 1%. So now we know where we have our revenues, where are we proposing to budget and expend these funds? That's our appropriations. The next slide. So plan for 2021, we are going to purchase 7 school buses. We currently have 100 school buses and 10 additional school vehicles, which are 7 passenger vans for students that we may have to take to other schools, and a large 54 passenger buses is, it's not cost effective to put a 54 passenger bus on the road for maybe 1 or 2 students. So we did purchase a couple of these passenger vans, and transportation and the drivers have been very pleased with it. So in order for us to keep the fleet on a rotation schedule so that we don't have 20 buses going down one year when they're coming in at about $110,000, we have created our transportation has created a vehicle rotation schedule. So we're anticipating the purchase of 7 new school buses. Additionally, we're going to have new textbook adoptions and additional and replacement Chromebooks throughout the district. It's a good thing that technology has been something that the district has been amping up, because in this situation, it really came in handy. In terms of capital projects, we're looking at completing a unit ventilator replacement project at the high school. In this year's budget, I think because of last year, we had unit ventilators where the hoses burst and we had to go in. It destroyed some equipment and textbooks and technology and floors. We went in and we have it in this year's budget to replace that. So that's a project, but some of the older units are starting to go. So we decided to select this as a project to go in and update the unit ventilators at the high school. That project will come in at about $3.3 million. The greenhouse at the middle school, we're looking for a supplemental cost of about $550,000. If you recall, when we did the bid for I believe it was around this time last year, we put out a bid for the greenhouse and the next project, the renovation of the curriculum office at the middle school, demoing a building and expanding the parking lot, which is really needed at the middle school. Those project costs came in much higher than the original budget. So we could not ignore the cost that had come in, and several vendors had bid on it. So the architect went back, took a look at the average cost or the average bid on those projects, then estimated that if we go out to bid a year later, what would those costs be? So we need to supplement the middle school by 550,000, the middle school greenhouse. And the curriculum office, we would need to supplement that project by another 444,000. So in order to get those funds, we're requesting to withdraw them out of capital reserve this year. We have an additional project, a flooring replacement and an abatement at the BOE building. Mercury became a topic this year. We had no mercury in the schools, but when we looked at the old gym, which is right now, it's a holding spot and we're about to renovate that. But when we took a look at the flooring in there and we had it tested, there is mercury in there. So for the safety of everybody concerned, we're going to abate that. And that cost is about 200,000. I'm going to tell you that that cost is slightly inflated. But if it's not used, it goes back to not reserve it from the operating budget. It would go back to surplus, any unutilized funds. So what has not changed for 2021? We're going to support current staffing, so we don't have any reductions in staff. We still are not planning to charge anybody to participate in extra or co-curricular activities. We're going to continue to invest in the district's infrastructure, continue to invest in technology, the arts, and this will support the best outcome for our students. So for our appropriations, I know that in your agendas, there is the advertised budget. So I have collapsed some of these figures. Some figures you'll be able to point right to, and others have been collapsed. But overall, for instruction for the students, we're budgeting 40.2 million, tuition 7.4 million, student support services 12.2 million, administration and information technology 7.6 million, operation and maintenance 7.3 million, student transportation 8 million, salaries and benefits 16 million, interest on maintenance reserve $500, capital outlay 5.3 million, and transfer to charter schools, so students that are in charter schools, 591,000, for a total operating budget of $104,975,852. And that agrees with the revenues that we anticipated, and we have a balanced budget. Another slide. If you take a look at where the money is spent with the pie chart, the largest portion, which you would expect in a school, is in instruction, 38%, tuition is 7%, student support services 12%, student transportation is 8%, operation and maintenance is about 77% of the budget, transfer to charter schools about 1%, administration and information technology 7%, benefits are about 15%, and capital outlay is 5%. And then we give you a 3-year comparison. If you look at the comparison, you'll see 2018-19 actual, 20 revised. So this is the year we're in now. What we're proposing for next year. You'll see that the levels are just as we discussed. We have an increase slightly in the tax levy. The state aid number is neck and neck. Tuition, slightly less tuition this year because we have fewer students, so our tuition revenue did go down. And in terms of the local, we're budgeting the same as in this year, 80,600. The semi figure we've already gone over. In 1920, there is a prior year encumbrance that would have been purchases or commitments that we made, but the goods hadn't been provided yet. So those are like checks that are outstanding that haven't cleared. So the revenue for that rolls in from the prior year, so that when the goods are received, we have the money from the prior year to pay that. Our withdrawal in capital reserve went from 5.2 million to 4.3, and our budgeted fund balance, 2.6 million to 2.2 million, as we discussed. For 2020, 2021, again, our revenues are 104,975,852. Instruction, we're next year 47.6, student support 12.2, administration and information 7.6, operations 7.3, transportation the 8 million, benefits 16 million, transfer to charter school 591,000, and capital and maintenance 5.3 million, for a total appropriation of 104,795,852. So this is the proposed budget and the tax levy that goes along with it. So for the general fund, it's 104,975,852, and it would be supported with a tax levy of 50,566,633. Special revenue fund, which we did not discuss in this presentation because you don't have to vote on it. We budgeted 80% of the allocations. I'm sorry, we budgeted 85% this year of the budgeted allocations that we received in this year's budget. So if I had a award of $100,000, I am permitted to budget 85% of that, or $85,000 in the subsequent year. 9 times out of 10, the actual award is higher. So we get an adjustment. So for a special revenue fund, we're budgeting $4.3 million. Again, there is no tax levy associated with that. And for debt service, this year, our total cost will be $82,150, of which $82,149 is going to be raised by the tax levy. If you compare that to the prior year, it is dropped drastically. This will be the final payment in 2021 is the final payment, and then the district will have no debt service. So the total budget, we have the less local contribution to the preschool grant. So really in our general fund, we're taking money and supporting the preschool program. So our total budget will be 108,968,758, with a tax levy of 50,648,782. So now let's take a look at the tax impact. So the net valuation taxable for 2020 is a large number. $2,645,782,183. The average residential assessment for 2020 is $175,500, and the tax rate is 1.918. So if you increase the tax levy by 1%, it would net $264,578. In 2019, the average assessed residential property was $175,200, and based off the last tax rate, it would have cost your taxes for just to support the schools would be $3,341. In 2020, a home assessed at $175,500, and that's the assessed the valuation of a home. Your tax levy would be $3,366. So the total increase is $25 for the year. At this point, I'm going to open it up for any questions. The board member, if you have any questions, if you could let us know. Anybody in the public that would like to ask a question, if they would please call 856-335-9328. We're going to be patient because I know there's a delay between what we're saying and what's going out on YouTube. And then when they call in, it's got to be transferred into us. So if anybody has questions, please feel free to call and participate in the meeting. Again, the number is 856-335-9328. Unmute the board.
So board members, would you have any questions for Ms. Boyle as it relates to her budget presentation?
This is Julie Peterson. I just had a comment and I wanted to thank Mrs. Boyle and her staff for an excellent budget presentation. It seems like for the past 6 years, our figures are almost comparatively the same, even with the number of students. Okay, thank you. Thank you, and we continue to do more with the funding that we have for capital projects, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. And of course, it is a joint effort between not just our staff, but the administrative team and the board, because we can't do anything without your approval. You know that Dr. Poteet, Dr. Carcamo, Mr. Davis, and I meet regularly to discuss anything of major concern or any capital expenditures. And then, of course, we do bring it to the board. So thank you. We have a call.
Any other questions from the board members?
Madam President, there is a question. There's somebody in line.
All right, so we can take that question.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for joining the public hearing section of the board meeting. Please state your name and feel free to ask any question you have pertaining to the 2021 budget.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Rogers. So I have two questions. One is pertaining to a budgetary issue, and one is something a little different. So I'll start off with the budget issue. My question is, how are you allocating funds? Because I imagine there has to be a mass cleanup when the schools reopen. So how are you allocating funds to make sure the schools are clean and safe for both the staff and the children to return?
Mr. Rogers, we have custodians on staff that are sanitizing the buildings and making sure that they're clean. Before the students come back, we will take every precaution. The custodians are here, they clean up, and of course they wipe and disinfect areas that are frequently touched. Currently, the buildings are, I would say, pretty much unoccupied. I do come into my office and I do wipe down my own handles because there's certain things that we have to get done. This position requires that we meet deadlines. Those deadlines have not been forgiven. But for the most part, the classrooms in the schools are unoccupied. They went in and they did the cleaning and they've been unoccupied much longer than the 14 days, but the custodians are on it. We have not, at this point, heard any confirmed cases, but we would approach that. And believe me, the safety of the students is our top priority.
Okay. Thank you for that. And one more question. The staff, Winslow Township, the teachers, everybody does such a great job. We have gotten word today that one of our teachers of our children were doing Zoom meetings, and as of now, it's not permitted. I was wondering, why would the board take away a free resource and a tool away from a teacher and a child?
Mr. Rogers, I can't answer that question. I think it's a good question, and I'd hate to tell you this, but if you could call in and talk during public comments, I'm only dealing with questions pertaining to pertaining to the budget hearing at this time.
Mrs. Boyle,
Okay,
Okay.
wait a minute, Mr. Rogers. Yes, Dr.
Mr. Rogers, this is Dr. Poteet. If you would call back in during public comment, I'll be more than happy to address that question for you.
Okay. And that's going to be later in this meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It won't be too much longer. So if you would just wait a few more minutes, we'll be more than happy to address you, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
This is Lakeisha Jablum. I have a budget question.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get her last name.
Lakeisha Jablum, AJAEGBULEMH,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
AJAEGBULEMH.
Thank you.
Will your presentation be available online? Because I couldn't see it.
Yes, it will. We will post it tomorrow. I believe tomorrow, the presentation will be on the district's website, but you weren't able to see it this evening?
No, ma'am, I was listening to your presentation and I would have loved to have seen it so I could, see exactly what you're talking about. So I had to kind of visualize it in my head, if you will.
Yes, if you call in, that was for audio only. You would have had to gone on the website and joined in through YouTube.
I'm on the website. I just wanted to make that clear. I'm on the website and I was waiting for it to load, and then I just got tired of waiting, so then I dialed in to the call. Just wanted to let you know, and then, so.
I appreciate that. And we will have, I'm not going to try to pronounce your name because I will mess it up. But if you have an email, if you want to send me an email, I can email the presentation, but it will be on the district website.
Okay.
Okay, and I can give you my email now because it is public. It's McCoy, McCoy, at Winslow-schools.com.
Okay. I'll email you right now. Thank you very much.
When this meeting is over, I'll send the presentation to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have another caller. Okay. Are they coming through? Madam President, we do have one more caller calling in.
okay.
Yes, no? No, I'm sorry, Madam President. I believe that concludes anybody who wants to ask questions. I just heard something.
I did too.
It's Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay,
Now, this regard, the bill that passed the Assembly, A3902, that would allow the municipalities to hold the quarterly tax payment that's due to the school districts. Now, if that passes the state Senate, because they still haven't voted on that in the Senate, how will that affect our budget going forward into the 2021 school year?
Well, it would impact the flow of revenues. And Mr. Shaw, there are so many uncertainties at this point that I have pulled my hair out and I've decided to deal with what I know at this point. I know that the state also has extended their fiscal year to the end of September. The state also defers our June state aid payments. Historically, we would get them in July. I am unsure if that extension will cover us or if they're going to withhold the June state aid payments until October. Nobody has said that, but nobody has said they aren't. I don't think it's going to have an overall impact in terms of total funding that we will receive from the municipality, but it may impact when it gets here. I know that there was discussions about taking out tax anticipation notes. We are also available to the district to borrow money from the banks to see if they'll give us a loan. Any interest that accrues, and this is for the June state aid payment, any interest that accrues, the state pays for that and pays the bank whatever the loan is. I don't know if we're going to get it in July, in which case I wouldn't go through the paperwork, but without knowing when we're going to get it, there's no option for me at this point. If the state aid or if the tax levy and if it passes and they can withhold tax levy, we have a good relationship with the township. We've always worked with them as to when their tax levy comes in. And so whatever avenue opens up, and it may be tax anticipation notes, then we would just have to avail ourselves of that. I certainly can't see the state squeezing the district to the point, or any district to the point where they would be just cash poor, so we couldn't make payroll or we couldn't make pay our vendors.
Right, Miss Boyle, also Mr. Shaw, just to add, in addition to that particular bill that you spoke of, Mr. Shaw, yet again, it does indeed yet have to pass the Senate. However, that total bill does indicate that the municipalities, even though the state is saying that tax collection may be extended, it really does depend on the municipalities. The municipalities do have the final say. So therefore, Ms. Bull, what I'm saying is that we may not have to do any additional kinds of pulling together revenues, because if indeed our township decides to not extend or lengthen the due dates for our taxes, it will remain status quo.
Right.
That's correct, Ms. Pitts. I've taken a look at the bill extensively, and it is still pending, as we've mentioned, but it is ultimately up to the, if the way it is now is ultimately up to the municipality at the end of the day, if it goes through as currently.
Right.
Is that someone calling in?
That's somebody's.
Okay. So, Madam President, I don't see that anybody else is calling in with questions. There will be a public comment section, so if anybody in the public has had an issue getting in, there will be an opportunity for public comments again during the course of this meeting before the budget is voted on. The budget will be voted on, I believe it's on page 5.
I believe it is.
It's on page 5, section C. So
Right.
the public comments section will come before that. So
Correct.
some persons may, if they can't get through or they're having problems reaching us, or that answered all the questions.
Okay.
But I'd like to move on.
Okay. Therefore, board members, we are going to move on. As Ms. Bull has indicated, there are no additional questions with regards to the budget. Correct, Ms. Boyle?
Yes.
All right. Board members, now we're moving on to, going back to continuing with our agenda to correspondence.
We have none this evening, Madam President.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bull. Board members, at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes from our previous board meeting, which occurred April 8th, 2020, open session. Is there a motion?
Peterson move.
Dredden second.
Peterson moved, Dredden second. Did I hear that?
Yes,
Yes, Ms. Pitts.
Board members, I want to remind you that for this meeting, so that we can move things smoothly, I have asked Mr. Shaw and Ms. McClendon to motion and to second any of our motions as they come up on our agenda. Are we clear and okay with that?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right, okay, just a reminder. So therefore, that was moved by, I think this time the minutes to approve the minutes from my last meeting was moved by Ms. Peterson, however, and second by Ms. Dredden.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake? Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Dredden?
Yes,
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes,
The motion has carried.
thank you. Moving now, board members, committee reports, would there be any board member that would have a committee report at this time?
operations none at this time, Madam President.
Thank you. Hearing none, we're moving now to public comments. The Winslow Township Board of Education highly values the input of citizens in making important decisions that affect the children of our community. We also believe in the rights of citizens to observe our board meetings. To ensure that all citizens have the opportunity to attend school board meetings and offer their comment, and to ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district, we ask that speakers follow these guidelines for making public comments. The board president or board secretary will recognize those individuals who call in and wish to make comment. Please respect these following procedures. Number one, all members of the public who have called into our school board meetings must treat each other and the board with respect. Number two, when you do call in, please state your full name and address. Number three, kindly limit your comments to 4 minutes. Number four, any additional questions that you may have for the Board of Education, please submit them with your name, address, and telephone number where you can be contacted. Your questions will be answered within a reasonable amount of time. And number five, individuals offering citizen comment are not permitted to make personal attacks on any district employee, board member, other testifier, or member of the public. So at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve opening this meeting to public comments.
Motion to open public comments?
McClendon, second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Boyle, do we have people who have called in with questions at this time?
Yes, we do have several people that have called in, or they had sent the email slip. They were given instructions as how to call in.
Fine.
Go to. Okay, so we would like to, oh, it is up. And on the YouTube site, it says if you have public comments, please call 856-335-9328.
Okay, Ms. Fuller, before we go into recognizing, can you at least let me know at this point how many people we have in queue? How many people can we expect who will be making public comments?
Madam President, 4 persons completed the slip, and that they had given them to, they had filled out the slip online. They received instructions as to how to call in.
Okay.
And I think Mr. Aponte has Mr. Rogers on the line. So, Mr. Rogers, would you like to state your name and address? And then ask
Good
your
evening. My name is Anthony Rogers. I live at 34 Red Fox Trail in Sicklerville.
You can answer or state your public comment.
So my comment is this: I called earlier and I was encouraged to call back. So my issue was with the board not allowing teachers to use different meetings like Zoom, and taking that educational tool away from the teacher, subsequently the student. I realized that one major concern might be accessibility for all students. However, I think that all students, most would have access to via their parent or guardian, and also they can dial in. These services, free internet services, are being given by a lot of companies, including Xfinity, Verizon, AT&T. Also, on a different level, these meetings and face-to-face things where they get to see their classmates are good for our kids. They're good for the students that, are in Winslow here, and all students. So I don't understand why a teacher who would be using something to benefit our kids would be shut down in her using this.
Mrs. Rogers, this is Dr. Poteet. I would like to respond to your question.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I just want you to know that the directive came from me as superintendent to all teachers that Zoom was a platform that they are not to use under any circumstances at this time. I'm not sure whether or not you are aware, or the community, to a degree, that there has been so many problems with Zoom, particularly with hacking, which they refer to as Zoom bombing, across the country. And one of our neighboring school districts, just 2 days ago, Lumberton School District, a middle school teacher was doing a Zoom class and it was hacked, whereby profanity, racial slurs, pornography images, and this is going on across the country, and it's gotten so bad now the FBI is involved in this process of investigating these kinds of things. There are so many other platforms that we have provided that are also free to our teachers to use, and many of our teachers are using those platforms, such as WebEx, Global Hangouts, GoToMeeting, Skype, etc. It goes on and on. So if there is a teacher using Zoom, particularly now after I have given that directive, we are directing them to have a conversation with their building principal so we can direct them to other platforms that have been considered much safer and have not had the kinds of incidents that we are experiencing now. So at this point, we are asking all teachers, please discontinue using Zoom and use some of the other platforms that are also available and also are free.
Okay, so it was a safety thing for everyone.
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, we have not had the experience, but many of my colleagues here in Camden County and across the state, as also across the country, that some of these things have gotten so bad where they've been hacked, and again, the Zoom bombing has gotten so bad that the experiences have required not only the FBI, but the state police and some of the other law enforcement officers. So we're being encouraged not to use it. And it is not only for safety, the racial kinds of things that are being done is also now under investigation. And of course, the pornography, we do not want any of our children to experience having those kinds of things happen. And normally, I think the longest it can happen for 15, 20 seconds, which is more than enough time. So yes, we are doing this not only for the safety of our staff, but more importantly, the safety of the children. So that's the reason we've done it. in the best interest of our students.
So, I mean, just to make sure that I understand you, it's not that you don't want them to meet on these mediums. Just use the approved one. Like I think you said Google Classroom. Is that right?
Yes, that was one of them. Go-to meetings, Google Hangouts, WebEx. I mean, there's so many out there, and I would say if you would contact your building principal, the building principal would be more than happy to share with you some of the additional free websites or, excuse me, platforms that are out there that's available.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Cossey, I appreciate the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We're waiting for the next caller.
Okay.
They're coming in here through your phone. Okay.
Mrs. Boyle?
Yes, Dr. Poteet, we have a caller on the line.
Okay.
Good evening, caller. You've joined the public comment section of the board meeting. Please state your name and address and feel free to make your comment. And if you could spell your name, that would be nice.
Okay, yes, my name is Becky Nieves. That's N-I-E, V as in Victor, E-S.
Yes.
My address is 9 Elbow Lane in Sicklerville.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So if you want to speak to the, state your public comment or speak to the board.
Yes. Okay, well, first and foremost, I want to take the time to congratulate our teachers and staff of the Winslow Township School District. Academically and accessibility-wise, they are doing an absolutely amazing job, and I just want to give kudos to our teachers because they are amazing. I also had a question in regards to Zoom meetings. I just heard Dr. Poteet mention the other platforms of WebEx, GoToMeeting, Google Hangouts. My understanding is that GoToMeeting and WebEx are a fee-based service, so I don't know if the school district pays for that service, but the teachers would be able to utilize that during the concern that we have with the Zoom security at this point.
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Poteet, the caller asked a question about the Zoom meeting.
Yes, well, we have made all of those websites available. Again, what I have, and I will continue to direct parents to the building principals, and they will direct you to those platforms that they are presently using and what is available. So there are quite a few. Unfortunately, I don't have a list of them right in front of me. I just mentioned those few. And at this point, I don't want the parents to even concern themselves with cost because it is not a cost to the parents. It would be a cost to the district. But we do have those platforms available. So only thing we have to make sure is that the teachers are using them so that they could have access. And call the building principals, and they'll be more than happy to share with you what platforms are available and also encourage the parents to use those platforms.
Okay, that would be good because I feel that these Zoom calls or virtual meetings are akin to recess for these students. And I think happier students will perform better. They see their classmates and they're inclined to get their work done. So I appreciate that the district is making these other platforms available to students. I did have one other suggestion. I know during last board meeting, there was a concern voiced by you, Dr. Poteet, that there are some students who are not doing work or not turning in work or struggling in some form of. I know that we have a lot of parents who would be interested in helping those struggling families in the form of maybe a mentoring or a buddy system, so that we can all, as a district, continue to perform and be able to be ready to go when school does reopen. I firmly believe, in someone much wiser than me said, we are only as strong as our weakest student. I just would like to maybe use this pandemic and this learning situation as a way to encourage parent participation and to have parents reach out to each other if they are struggling, and possibly have some kind of mentorship opportunity to help our fellow parents in this time.
Yes, and of course, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and we would like as much parental participation as possible. The first thing I think we need to do is to make sure that if there's a parent in need, they have to let us know. And that's first and foremost, because like yourself, if you have not reached out, then we would not know that you've had a concern. So in order for even parents to help each other, even within your own neighborhoods, we have to know who they are. However, let me just speak on behalf of the school district and the resources that we are providing. We do have support staff in addition to our teachers, as you well know, and we are encouraging our support staff to stay involved with the teachers as well as with our students. So we do have our counselors, our mental health people, our child study teams. All of those individuals are prepared on a daily basis. They are also working through remote learning as well. So until we reach a point where we feel that we do not have enough resources ourselves, and right now, I think as a district, members of the board as well as the community, I think we have deployed every resource we could possibly make available to our children, just as though they were still in our schools on a regular basis. So if you as a parent have a social media contact where you can communicate this amongst yourselves, because we as a district, of course, cannot provide you with names of individuals because the privacy, and we don't have the opportunity to, nor legally can we exchange or share that kind of information. But I think if you can use your social media platforms just to put it out there to communicate amongst yourselves, that if there are any parents out there who would like to have, any assistance, call my number. I'm more than happy to share that with you. But at this point, as a district, we have not been in a situation where we feel that we are overwhelmed and that our resources have not been enough to provide the services to our children. I mean, we can always use additional assistance, and if you are available amongst yourselves to do that. But right now, and I just want to assure the board as well as the community that we are doing everything that we possibly could do, and all the resources that we have, technology, human resources that we have right now available are available to all of our youngsters and all of our parents, just as though these young people were sitting in front of us on a regular basis.
Dr. Poteet.
Yes, ma'am.
I certainly concur. And Ms. Nieves, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Ms. Nieves, is this Ms. Nieves who is a part of the board's Citizens Advisory Committee? Is this the same Becky Nieves?
Yes, same Mrs. Nieves.
Okay, great, because the Citizens Advisory Committee is, of course, a bridge to the community. And as Dr. Poteet has mentioned, if indeed, and your idea, you would want to reach out to those in the community who may share with you the status of their students, I would expect and think that the Citizen Advisory Committee would perhaps get together and come up with some sort of a recommendation and maybe even a plan that we may consider.
That's fair enough, and we meet,
Okay.
so we will definitely be discussing some of these options.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nieves.
problem. Thank you all.
Mhm.
Mrs. Boyle, do we have another caller?
Yes, Dr. Potteet, there's another caller. Waiting for it to transfer in.
Okay.
Good evening. You've joined the public comment section of the board meeting. Please state your name and address, and then feel free to make your comment. Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Mhm. Can you
Hello?
state your name and address?
Sure, my name is Allison Ruskowski, and I live at 7 Brookview Drive, Atco.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Sure, it's ROSKOSKI.
Thank you.
And excuse me, Ms. Bull, if I could just ask a question. Ms. Wiskowski, is this the Ms. Wiskowski who is also a member of our Citizens Advisory Committee?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Good evening. I just I want to reiterate what Becky said. I want to give our thanks to our teachers. This is definitely an unprecedented time, and I don't think that anyone is expecting perfection or anyone to have a solid answer really as to what's to come. I speak on behalf of a lot of parents. I'm the president of the HSA at school too, and so I field a lot of concern as well as praises from our schools, kind of as a parent liaison. I also sit on the CAC. I'm also the parent representative for the safety team at school too. So I take that very seriously. And so over the last few days, I do have some questions, concerns, just some talk, some chatter among parents that I felt like was my kind of role to bring to the board. One, being totally different than what kind of Becky spoke on, is I have had several parents, and I know that this is a period of unknown, but I told them that I would ask, and so I want to do that. Is there any talks about even a tentative date or procedure for kindergarten and preschool registration?
Yes, we do have that information available. Dr. Carcamo, would you give the specifics for preschool and kindergarten registration in terms of those dates?
Yeah, so Dr. Petit, we are currently looking toward the end of May for kindergarten registration, and traditionally that's the same time that we've held it every year. Preschool registration usually takes place in June, and so we will not begin registration before that time. Preschool registration first goes to the students who are income eligible. So those students, then the vacancies will be made available to the public, and we will be doing an online registration for both preschool and kindergarten students. And we will post those dates on the district website as well as the school's website when we're ready to begin.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My second kind of follow-up conversation, more than a question, is regarding the technology. Now, just a little background, I am dealing only at the lower elementary level. My children are in 3rd, 1st, and preschool, so I cannot speak, nor do I have knowledge of what is happening at the higher levels. But the lower elementary level is packet-based. So the work is packets. That was all that is required and all that will be required to be handed in. When this first started, teachers were doing supplemental assignments, lessons. Some of the teachers were recording themselves reading a story. Some were just using a Google Classroom to offer like a science experiment. Some of them were given additional text. They were saying that this was optional because of the equity factor. Not everyone, we cannot guarantee everyone has access. Somewhere along the way, those additional resources and enrichment
items were stopped. It was my hope, I know we all started this thinking this was going to be maybe a 2-week, 15-day kind of break. Now we are into months and potentially, you know, throughout the remainder of the year. So I just wanted to clarify and again address to make sure that myself and others that were concerned are on the same page. Teachers are probably not only allowed but encouraged to do those enrichment activities on Google Classroom, through Class Dojo, through the different medias. Flipgrid is a place where they can record stories, YouTube, and then those items be optional for families who have access. It is okay that only some are able to access that information and others are choosing not to or don't have the capacity to do so.
Yes, well, let me respond with the general statement, and if there's any specifics, then I'll allow Dr. Carcamo to fill in the blanks. We encourage our teachers to use all the resources that are available to them. There has not been any limitations other than my original statement in not using Zoom. On the other hand, yes, the lower elementary schools were primarily packet-based, but there were options for the teachers to be as creative as possible. For any parent who needed any assistance in technology, for all of them who have brought it to our attention, we were able to accommodate them. Particularly if they were just requesting a Chromebook or something of that sort. We provided information for them if they didn't have internet access at their homes. Unfortunately, you know, the district's not in the position to take care of those kinds of things. But if it's just a matter of needing technology, we have not turned down anyone who has requested. As a matter of fact, we are prepared to accommodate anyone in our district who asks for that type of assistance. We are prepared to accommodate them. So at this point, and it does not have anything to do with the socioeconomic status of any of our students. If you just ask, we will accommodate you as best we possibly can. And at this point, I would say 100% of the parents who have asked, we have accommodated. So if there's anything else beyond what I've stated that you wanted more clarity, I would refer to Dr. Carcamo. But if your question has been answered, I'll let you respond to that.
No, that was excellent. So if a family does need access to, say, a Chromebook, they should just contact their building principal?
That's all they have to do. And let me just...
May I respond to that? So the concern that we had at the elementary level is that we have a majority of the students, quite a large number of students, who don't have access to internet. And so we provided packets for those students because there was such a large gap. We have not said to the principals or the teachers that they are not permitted to use Google Classroom. Actually, that's what we prefer because it's much safer. Some of the teachers do something like Dojo and other reminder, small things like that. That's not an issue for us. And so what I've said to the principals that if teachers are doing readings of that nature, I don't have an issue with that. It has to be posted on the school website. Wants to retrieve it, can, but it is not a requirement.
Okay.
And it's not a requirement because of the equity issue. We can't do the Zoom meetings or face-to-face meetings for some parents when other students don't have access to that technology. But for those teachers who can, if they do a cold read for students, it has to be made available to everyone, not for select students.
Okay, so if my child's teacher records a story on, say, Flipgrid, they are not allowed to send it to just my child's class. They have to put it on the school website. Is that what you're saying?
It's available for everyone. There becomes the issue of equity and access. which is what we are obligated to make sure that we're providing the same level of experiences for all of our students. If it's made available and you can retrieve it, we don't have a problem with that. But the teachers are not doing individual things for individual students because there is no equity there.
I'm sorry, I'm not following exactly.
Um,
Not individual students, but a teacher and their roster of students.
So let's talk about the classroom. So if the teacher's doing a flip grid video for her classroom, the issue there again is it has to be made available to every person in the classroom. And if the teacher cannot assure us that it is made available so that every student has access to it, then no, she can't. It has to be posted so anyone who wants to retrieve it can.
Okay, and you're saying, just to clarify, that by putting it on the school website, that is ensuring equitable access?
Yes, it is, because anyone can access it from that point.
Okay, so it's not about.
And they want to access as long as they can reach. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's not, the issue isn't that it is a online resource, it is the issue of where they are making it accessible. So that it is not enough to post that into a like their Mind app or their Dojo app or their Google Classroom. It has to be on the school webpage and to be considered equitable.
Dr. Parker,
Person, yeah, trying to process what she said, what was said. Every student in the classroom has access to the apps that are being used. There is not a problem if the teachers doing that.
Equity, of course, is something that we as a school district is required to make sure that all the children are getting the same level of instruction and have the same level of access. Unfortunately, there are some families, and Dr. Carcamo mentioned at the lower level, where we have a higher number of families who do not have internet access. As I stated earlier, if we had the resources where we can accommodate all of the families in the township to make sure that that is possible, then we would have done so. But the bottom line here is, if you can't make sure that all of the children in that classroom have the same opportunity or access, then it can't happen, because we cannot put ourselves in that situation. So why don't I try to respond this way? I think if you talk to the building principal, find out who the individual teacher is, because at this point in time, our teachers know their children, and they know which ones of their children have and do not have access. And if you're in a situation where the classroom teacher and all 20 of the students have internet access, then I'm sure that teacher will use the additional resources to make sure that those children have equitable access. But if you're in a classroom of 20 and there's only 10 children who have access and the other 10 does not, then you cannot use that resource. You only can do those things where all the children are receiving the same amount and the same level of instruction equally.
Dr. Poteet, I believe that that is the message that Mrs. Kelly delivered to her staff, exactly what you said.
Yes, and I'm almost assured of that, Doc, because I know that is the directive that we have been giving them since the beginning of our closure. So I'm hoping that that is what's being conveyed. But again, I think more importantly, these kinds of questions can be answered in detail, call the building principals directly, and then they can more than likely help you navigate through that process with direct contact with the teachers. Because of so many teachers in classrooms, we are not in a position to be able to identify a teacher and be able to say how many of their children have access, how many do not. But I will continue to reiterate the fact and emphasize the fact that most of these questions will be addressed clearly and in more detail if you speak directly to the building principal and to the classroom teacher, so that you'll have a better idea where each of those individuals stand.
Okay, I did have a conversation with the building principal, and this is not a critique. I'm just asking for clarification because I feel like I have the same question as I did when this conversation started. So Dr. Petit, I feel like you said that they were allowed to put supplemental enriching resources out, and now I feel that's conflicted in that they are not allowed. So I did have a conversation with the building principal. I am not trying to be confrontational. That is not, I was looking for clarification because when I listened to the caller earlier, my understanding after the conversation with the building principal was because we could not ensure that all of the students had internet, that staff was no longer permitted to provide additional online resources. Aside from like the list of academic websites that were available on the school webpage. So that included, you know, the teacher was not allowed to be behind or to push out any optional enriching scavenger hunts or science experiments or things that were not going to be seen by every student because the child at home with no internet is not seeing this, you know, is not accessing this information. That was my understanding. And when the caller called earlier, I called in because I was like, wait a minute, I'm confused because that made it seem like they were allowed to do those things.
Yes, may I respond? And first of all, I just want to make it clear that I am not, I don't feel that you're being confrontational, and we welcome your questions. And I think this is the only way you're going to get the answers. But I think, and I'm going to stick to my general statement, and that is, it varies from level to level. At the high school level, for whatever reasons, cannot be equated to what's happening at the lower elementary level or the middle school level. They are doing a lot of things differently because they have students and more students who have access. Some of these students are even using their own cell phones or whatever they're using. But if they have the overwhelming majority, or 100% of their kids have access, then they're going to have more flexibility. As Dr. Carcamo stated, at the lower elementary level, where they found that those little people, for whatever reasons, did not have that access, so you had to do something differently that was more equitable for those young people. So it depends on the level. It depends on the subject area. So one brush doesn't paint all of the situations because you can't paint everything or just put out one rule and expect the entire school district to follow it. What we're doing is trying to accommodate everybody. So whatever we can do to accommodate the lower elementary as best we possibly can, we're going to do that. But I'm not going to stifle the middle school and high school teachers by saying to them, because we can't do it at the lower elementary level, you can't do it at the high school level. So that's not the case. So I think you have to look at this situation level by level, almost teacher by teacher, classroom by classroom, because again, the teachers, if you call one of the principals at the upper level, their response may be totally different than the school two's principal where your children are. So we're not going to tie anybody's hands across the board. It just boils down to who has accessibility and who does not, but it still has to be equitable. The district is required by law, and we have a moral obligation to make sure that all of our children are getting the same level and the same quality of education. So that's pretty much my response, but I don't want you to feel in any way that by you asking questions that we or I think that you're being confrontational, because that's not the case. I just want to make sure it's clear enough for you to be able to have some understanding as to what we are trying to do and what is happening in our schools.
Yeah, by no means am I trying to infer that the older levels should not be accessing technology at all. I think it's wonderful. I've heard wonderful things. They're doing Google Classrooms, they're doing this. That's wonderful. And it's not, this wasn't even a personal thing. My children are doing what they need to do. We know how to research and access enriching resources on the internet, whether they be provided by my own children's teachers or not. We can access those things. It was just a general concern of kind of a retraction of what was already being done, and why that retraction had been made. It seems that we were progressing towards,
Excuse me, I'm going to have to interrupt Ms. Wiskowski. If indeed you need further clarification, because certainly we have, with your questions, we have gone well beyond our 4-minute limit. So I would ask if there's further clarification, if you would contact by way of telephone or email, either Dr. Poteet or Dr. Carcamo, so that they can further explain and help you to understand the situation. Is that okay?
I absolutely can do that. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Boyle, is there another one waiting?
Yes, Madam President, we have another caller. All right, I think we have 3 more, 2 more, 1 more. Okay, we're waiting for it to be transferred in.
Okay.
Good evening. You joined the public comment section of the board meeting. Please state your name and address, and then feel free to make your comment.
Deanna Shihadi, 7 Belmont Court, Pickleville, New Jersey.
Can you spell your last name, please?
Shehadeh.
Okay, thank you. You want to make your comment?
Oh, yes. First off, shout out to all the teachers because they have been very good with all the students in the classrooms. And they've been there even though this pandemic's going on. But my question is that if we do go back, what is the plan if we reopen this year for social distancing in the classrooms and buses?
This is Dr. Poteet. I'd like to answer that question for you. Unfortunately, no one can answer that question. What we are doing as educators is waiting for our health department and our state leaders, particularly our governor, to provide us with the guidelines as to how that is to happen. No one, I don't think there's anyone right now in the state or in this country that can say to you, this is how social distancing is going to occur on school buses and in classrooms. As a matter of fact, we are so far away from being able to answer that question that I can't even begin to even try to guess. And because I am not a health official and we've been thinking about these kinds of things for the past couple months. But until the health officials lay out a plan for us and how it's going to happen, then I don't think that's an answer, a question that we can answer at this time.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, but from what I've heard, Governor Murphy, he said something about us going back May 15th.
No, he didn't say that.
He said schools will be closed at least until May 15th.
Correct.
And I am going to assume that by May 15th, if not on May 15th, he will let us know what the plan is from that point on. prior to that, and hypothetically, if the governor says that we are going to return to schools, then your first question would have to be answered before that can occur. And that is, have a plan laid out by the health officials so that we'll know exactly how that's going to take place. So we will know probably closer to May the 15th, if not on the 15th of May, what the governor's decision is going to be. All right?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Ms. Bull, any other names calling in? Any other persons?
Yes, we have another caller. Waiting for it to transfer in, Ms. Fitz.
Okay.
Good evening. You've joined the public comment section of the board meeting. Please state
Hello.
please state your name and address, and then feel free to make your comment to the board.
Dawn Melnick, 420 Elm, or
Can you spell your last name, please?
MELNYK.
Thank you. You want to make your comment?
Yes, my daughter's in first grade and has been doing Zoom classes with her teacher. And the problem with the hacking was that it was old passwords that weren't updated. So seeing if the person having the meeting updated their password, then it would be fine. The other thing is one of the options on Zoom is to not have a password for the person logging in to use, to just have it open. And if you know something's there, you could go in. So that's the problem. But the teachers, I believe, all were using, well, hers at least, the Zoom account that requires them to enter a password again. So just to clarify, that was the hacking. It's not just like general hacking. It's, if you change your password, it would be fixed. There were 500 accounts that were sold on the dark web or something of Zoom accounts that the people did have the password. And those are the ones that are being investigated by the FBI. And the issue I have with, or question I have, I should say, is so if my daughter's teacher decided to use one of the other platforms that you're saying the district would provide, and incur the cost or whatever, the Google Classroom, I know they use, and then that's not the equivalent to Zoom though. There's another one that's the Google Meetup, I think it's called. That would be the equivalent to Zoom, where they could have a live class. Tell them at 10 o'clock we're going to do math. And then they, the kids log on and she basically does the lesson. And one of the required worksheets for the day with them, but giving them, concrete objects to relate to, or, she's the cereal box, instead of, to explain what the shape is. And so these kids, not everyone is logging on. So it's, for it to be equal and equivalent, like you're saying, to have, to everyone have the same thing. Does every student have to log on, or are the teachers allowed to do those live class, live, like Zoom or whatever, but on the approved site, are they allowed to do a live lesson like that? Or does, if not all the students are logged on at the time of the class?
If the teacher is aware that every student in her classroom have the capability of logging on, then the teacher can do that. But if and only if that is possible. Again, if a teacher knows that half of her class do not have internet capability or the technology to do so, then we have recommended that they do not provide lessons when they know only 50% or 75% of the children are getting that information or getting that lesson and the others are not. So at this point, we are going to continue to encourage those teachers to make sure that all the students are receiving the same level and the same kind of education. Now, again, I don't know whether or not everyone in that classroom have that internet access, but that is a question that I would have to direct to the building principal and the teacher, but there's no way we are going to get around the equity issue. And if there are parents out there who do not have internet access, there may be a multitude of reasons why they do not. And if it's something as simple as not having a Chromebook or something of that sort, then the school district has made itself available to accommodate. But unfortunately, we have not been able to address all of those issues because some of those issues are beyond the reach of the school district. So as long as all of the children are getting the same thing, the same time, then we're good. If not, then we are encouraging our teachers not to do so.
Okay, but they're allowed to record something and post it. So what if they recorded, because you have the option on that site to record lessons. So if someone can't log on at a certain date and time, then, or are they not allowed to do even the recorded ones and post them on their internet? And for 60 days, due to the outbreak, Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, all are offering free Wi-Fi for all of their hotspots. So anyone who normally wouldn't have internet service because they can't afford it is the reasoning I believe you're saying is that's the reason why. So right now, Wi-Fi is free from all those sites for 60 days. And if it's, still, they would be able to have free Wi-Fi. And if the school is saying they provide them with a Chromebook, then they would have access to the same thing.
Yes, now the school district provided that information to all of the families who did not have internet access. And if there are still some families out there who have not taken advantage of AT&T, Comcast, Xfinity, and all the other providers out there, there's no way for us to know that. And we are limited in how much we can enforce in this particular area. We can't make a family do something if they, for whatever reasons, don't want to, can't afford to, whatever it may be. But we will, again, support our parents and letting them know that these resources are available. And if they would like to pursue the free access and the free internet, those kinds of things, we can continuously repeat it and make it available. But we have to keep in mind that it's up to those parents to take the initiative to make that happen. So we can only do with those things that we can control. And at this point, the thing that we can control is equity. And we are bound by that.
Like, I feel like it is equal because you've given them the services you offered. It's like I had to go pick up this worksheet packet. As a parent, that's what I made sure I went and did and got for my kids to be able to have their education. The parents choosing not to use free things, resources in order for their kids to get their education, then why is that? Like, why is my kid being punished from that? It is equal. They have access to it. If their parents aren't providing, then shame on the parent. That's like me my worksheets and saying, well, I didn't have a way to go get the worksheets, so I'm not,
But
this is Chris Long, and we really have to be careful about going into specific instances with certain families as to what they can and cannot provide.
Right, and
I think we've been past our 4 minutes. We've been pretty generous.
Right. And Mr. Long, I also just wanted to say in closing that
if it's a financial thing, I understand, but you're telling them this is how you do it.
Okay.
Use a pencil on a workbook, use the internet.
Yes, and ma'am, I have pretty much stated my position, the position of the district, and I'm not sure at this point what else I can say, but I do appreciate you calling in and your concern.
That's what I'm saying. That is not equal. If they have access to the information.
Ma'am, unfortunately, we can't go into specifics. This is Chris Long, the board solicitor. We unfortunately cannot go into specifics about individual families, so we can't address any further comments at this time, but we do appreciate you calling in.
Okay, it will be addressed later then.
Thank you.
Any other callers, Ms. Boyle?
Yes, Madam President. No, they
I think we're
haven't.
good.
No, Madam President, I believe they disconnected.
So there are no other callers waiting?
No other callers waiting. You're confirming that, Mr. Conte?
Yes, I'm confirming.
Okay, no other callers.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyle. At this time, board members, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn our public comment portion of our meeting.
Motion to adjourn public comments?
McClendon, second.
Moved by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. McClendon. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Board members, now I'm at the bottom of page 2. I'm asking for a motion to approve the superintendent's report that begins at the bottom of page 2 to the middle of page 3. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the superintendent's report.
McClendon, second.
Moved by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. McClendon. Would there be further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake? Mr. Blake? Yes. Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
And Mr. Blake, I did hear you, correct?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you clearly now. Motion
Okay.
has carried.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Boyle. Board members, at this time, I'm asking for a motion to approve the Business Administrative Board Secretary's report that begins at the bottom of page 3 and continues to the bottom of page 4. Is there a motion?
Approve the board secretary's report.
McClendon, second.
Moved by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. McClendon. Would there be further questions or comments on this report? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you. Board members, okay, moving now, I'm at the top of page 5, and this is the biggie. I'm asking for a motion to approve the proposed school district budget that was presented this evening. It begins at the top of page 5 and continues through to the bottom of page 10. Is there a motion?
Motion to pass the budget?
McClendon, second.
It has been moved by Mr. Shaw and second by Ms. McClendon to pass our budget. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Pitts?
Yes.
The motion has carried, and thank
County and state will be very happy.
you. Yay.
Ms. Boyle can breathe now.
Yes, she can breathe now. For a job very well done. So board members are now at the top of page 11. I'm asking for a motion to approve the personnel report.
Motion to approve the personnel report.
McClendon, second.
Moved by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. McClendon to approve our personnel report. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Ms. Dredden?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. McClendon?
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
and Ms. Pitts.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you. At this time, board members, you can see that we have no addendum. Now also to the open public records request.
We
Ms.
had
Boyle.
none for this period, Madam President.
Thank you, Ms. Boyle. Old business, board members, any old business at this time? Thank you. Hearing none. New business, board members, I'm sorry, would there be any new business items you would care to discuss at this time? Thank you. Hearing none. Moving now to informational items. Dr. Poteet, will there be any further informational items at this time?
Yes, Mrs. Pitts, I just wanted the members of the board and the community to know that we are having conversation with the building principals and staff in reference to designing some form of virtual graduation at the high school and a moving up ceremony for the middle school. So I just.
Very good. That is indeed good news, Dr. Poteet.
So again, we are, we want this to be as best a positive experience as we can for these young people. So we are in the planning stages, and we'll keep you posted as to where we are and what we eventually are going to be doing. We have some options available to us at this point. We are reviewing those options. Mr. Morella and Mrs. Wanguma are actually having these conversations with us, and I'll keep the board and the community posted. Thank you. That concludes my information items at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Poteet. Mr. Long, is it safe to assume that we have no executive session at this time?
That is correct, Madam President. No executive session at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Long. So therefore, board members, I would just remind us all that our next at-home board meeting will take place at its regular scheduled time and date, and that would be May 13th, Wednesday, May 13th at 7 p.m. Before we close, I would just like to say.
Madam President.
Yes, Ms. Boyle.
I believe that the May 13th meeting, you will be interviewing candidates for the board vacancy. So are we going to adjust the time?
Ms. Boyle, because at this time we're not exactly sure as to how many applications we're going to get, and I do know that the cutoff for that vacancy is May 12th, I would not want to in any way make it almost impossible for you to be able to schedule. So therefore, we will interview and appoint at our next second board meeting in May, which will be May 27th, which certainly will give you time enough to be able to schedule appointments and let the applicants know.
Okay, I will contact you tomorrow, Madam President.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Ms. Boyle.
I'll contact you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, because I do know that the notice that went out did say that we would interview and appoint at our May 13th meeting.
Yes.
Yes, I know that's what the notice said. However, looking at that further, I really was not sure. I'm not sure that that would give you, again, enough time, because the cutoff date is May 12th at 12 p.m.
Yes. And I won't know how many I get until the 12th.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
All right. So, excuse me. I'm sure that we can certainly just advise the public that those interviews and appointments will take place, excuse me, at our May 27th meeting, which of course, as we all know, board members, still places us well within our 65-day deadline to interview, appoint, and seat. Board members, any questions? No questions? Okay, thank you. Therefore, at this time, I again would like to thank the public for their patience. Thank Dr. Poteet and the administration for moving us along in this unparalleled times. And again, a big thank you, Ms. Boyle, to you and your staff for putting together a terrific budget and one that we can understand. At this time, board members, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
McClendon, second.
Moved by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. McClendon. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone, and be safe.
Good night.